Today, we're sharing some real accounts. These aren't, stories made up for the movies or campfire tales. We're talking about terror that actually, well, it steps out of the shadows, right into everyday life. What happens when just doing your job or driving home or even just being in your own bedroom? What happens when that suddenly becomes the setting for a hidden threat? It's that awful moment people realize their sense of safety was maybe never really there. We have 3 stories tonight. They show really different ways people's lives can be invaded, stalked. And we'll start with one from 1999. It shows just how fast a simple job can lay your whole life open to a stranger, a dangerous one. So this person, our narrator, worked in a store, developing film, from disposable cameras. Think about that. His job was literally to look at people's raw, unedited moments, strangers' lives. And yeah, the job had its weird side. He saw, well, pretty much everything. Inappropriate family stuff, explicit photos, odd fetishes. He even mentioned this one really bizarre shot, a man's anatomy in a banana peel from his point of view. He kind of thought he'd seen the dark side, the weird side. But he'd never, not once, seen anything that made him think, I need to call the police. Until this one day. He woke up a bit late that morning. His girlfriend, let's call her CLA, she'd already gone to work, but she left him a message. Kind of sweet, but also a little strange. In lipstick, on the bathroom mirror, it said, "See you later, you look so peaceful when you're sleeping." He just figured, oh, she must have popped back in quickly after her shift started. Didn't think too much of it then. Anyway, he gets to the store, maybe 10 a.m. His boss mentions the guy came in right at 9 a.m. Seemed really rushed. Dropped off a disposable camera, insisted it needed developing immediately, paid cash, left contact details that, well, they turned out to be completely fake. Then he just disappeared. So our narrator takes the camera to the back, starts the developing process. The first few photos, totally normal, kind of boring actually. Nature shots, some local spots, what you'd expect. Then the sequence shifts, and the feeling becomes instantly predatory. Photo number 3. A dead dog, and it was clearly mutilated. Okay, then photo 4. A self shot, a man wearing this grotesque animal mask, and he's holding something that looked like a machete. The horror was intentional now, but then it gets personal, deeply personal. The next shots are of the narrator himself, walking down the street, clearly taken from a distance. He had no idea. Then pictures of CLA, at her job, smiling, talking to people, completely unaware she was being watched, hunted. And then photos of them together at a coffee shop they went to. But here's a really crucial detail. In these photos of them together, the photographer's thumb is always visible, placed just so, often covering the narrator's face. That detail, it's so chilling. The focus wasn't on who he was stalking, specifically capturing his face. It was about documenting the act, the power of watching unseen.
Exactly. It's about the power dynamic, not just observing, but proving the observation, proving the access.
And the access, it became profound. The next photos were of the outside of their house. Then, a dark photo, taken from inside their living room. Another one taken from halfway up their stairs. Then a picture of their closed bedroom door. And the final image on that roll, the one that just crushes everything, a clear photo of the narrator and CLA, asleep, in their own bed.
That progression from, mundane shots to that final bedroom image. It's a terrifying record of escalating intrusion. And the chilling part is how he seemingly got in. No forced entry.
Exactly. That's what the police found, or rather didn't find. No broken locks, no smashed windows, nothing. The police theory was maybe, spare keys left by previous owners, someone careless, and this guy found one, used it. But that feels almost too simple, too passive for how aggressive this was.
It does feel passive, yes. But whether it was a lost key or sophisticated lockpicking, the psychological blow of that final photo, it shows this wasn't just about getting inside. It was about shattering their sense of security entirely, violating that sanctuary.
Sure.
Some individuals, they seek that feeling of power, knowing they've been somewhere they absolutely shouldn't be, right next to you, undetected.
And that thumb covering his face in the coffee shop photos, does that point to anything specific?
It could suggest a focus on the process itself, documenting the surveillance act, the technical success of it, almost like a trophy. The power demonstration might be more important than the victim's specific identity in that moment. And using the victim's own workplace, the photo lab, to deliver this evidence, that shows a disturbing level of planning and cruelty.
And then the detail that just breaks everything, that lipstick message on the mirror. When the narrator finally reached CLA, panicked, telling her everything and mentioned the note, she confirmed it. Absolutely. She had not written that message that morning. She hadn't even seen it when she left. So the stalker wasn't just watching from afar. He'd already been inside while they slept, watched them, and left his own little message. They moved out straight away, obviously. Terrified, constantly looking over their shoulders. The guy was never caught. Okay, let's shift now. From that kind of prolonged, calculated surveillance to something much faster. An incident that shows how vulnerable we can be in just, everyday moments, mundane tasks. This next account happened just a few years back. The narrator, a young woman, about 21 at the time, she was driving home with her husband, picked him up from work around 6 p.m. It was already getting dark. Her husband was absolutely exhausted, so he'd reclined his seat all the way back, fast asleep. From the outside, it looked like she was driving alone, just a young woman by herself. She needed gas, so she pulled into a station. Trying to be quiet, not wake her husband, she slipped out of the car and started pumping, and just as she went to close the car door, that split second, a hand slammed down on it, stopped her from closing it, and a voice right there demanded, "Get back in the car."
She screamed, just pure terror. And that scream, it probably saved her, because her husband woke up instantly, shot upright, threw open his door, and jumped out. The attacker, described as an older man, baggy clothes, his face covered in sores. Awful. But the absolute second he saw the husband, his whole attitude just flipped. He backed up fast, hands in the air, even got down on his knees trying to look harmless, kept saying, "I wasn't going to do nothing. I wasn't doing nothing to her." The narrator just wanted out of there, told her husband, "Get back in the car, let's go." And in that brief moment of, confusion, the man just bolted, ran out of the gas station lot, disappeared into the woods behind it.
It's a stark example of opportunistic attack. He saw what he thought was an easy target, the reclined seat, the single driver assumption. It confirmed his bias. She looked vulnerable, alone.
That sudden switch, though, from aggression to total submission, what does that suggest?
It points towards someone who isn't looking for a fight, but for easy control. Dominance without resistance. As soon as that element of surprise, that perceived advantage, disappears, they crumble. The appearance of the husband, the protector, instantly changed the equation. He wasn't equipped for confrontation, only for overpowering someone helpless. That's why he retreated so fast.
It's just terrifying. Those moments we feel safest, maybe. Or just distracted. Getting the car, checking your phone, that's when someone might be watching. Waiting. They called the police, of course. But the man was long gone. She said she still thinks about it all the time. And the one, tiny, grim bit of solace she found later, realizing their gas tank was almost empty. If he had forced her back in the car, they probably wouldn't have gotten more than maybe 15 miles. Just 15 miles before he'd have to stop again. That's how close it was. Okay, our final story tonight. This one shows how workplace harassment, how it can just metastasize, grow into this relentless campaign of terror that breaks every boundary, even distance. This is a story involving a man named Bob. Our narrator was working as an assistant manager at a grocery store. She was young, the youngest female AM they had. Bob worked at the cell phone kiosk inside the store. It started how these things sometimes do. Constant comments, "Hey, gorgeous," asking her to ditch her boyfriend for him, offering her a ride in my truck, with that suggestive tone. And the staring, constantly staring at her from across the store. Around December, it wasn't just words or looks anymore. It became physical. He started trying to hold her hand, purposely brushing up against her. One time, while she was counting the registers at closing time, he came up and started playing with her hair. But the worst was him sneaking up behind her, multiple times, grabbing her waist, getting so close she could feel his breath on her neck. Management warned him repeatedly, apparently, but Bob just kept scheduling himself on her shifts, like 80% of the time, always there, always watching. She eventually got a promotion, a transfer to a different store across town. She hoped, putting distance between them would be the end of it. Her new bosses were aware of the situation. They even arranged security escorts to her car. But Bob wasn't going away that easily.
Unfortunately, that's often the case. When an obsession forms, simply changing location rarely stops the stalker. It can actually escalate things. The target trying to escape.
Yeah.
That can feel like a challenge to the stalker, triggering a need to reestablish that control, often more aggressively.
And that is precisely what happened here. About a year after she moved stores, the phone call started. At first, just hang-ups, silence on the other end. Then his voice. "Hey, baby, do you miss me yet?" Soon they became menacing. Threats. And they were specific, showing he knew things about her current life. Things like, "Hey, Sugar Lips, I like your new car." Or, "Just awful. That's a cute top you're wearing, but it'd be really easy to rip off of you." Then his truck started appearing, parked across the street from her new store. Very distinctive truck, she said. But because he wasn't actually on store property, management felt, legally their hands were tied. He'd figured out the boundaries, how to operate just outside their reach.
That's a common tactical shift. Moving from direct confrontational harassment inside the store, which could get him fired or arrested, to covert surveillance from a distance. It's harder to prove, harder to police. By staying across the street, maybe behind sunglasses, using a phone, he maintains that intimidating presence, but makes it legally ambiguous. He forces her to live with the feeling of being watched.
And then the terror became something she could hold in her hand. Pictures started arriving. In the store's mail, addressed to the store, but clearly for her. First, it was shots of her outside, by her car, on her break. Standard stalker stuff, maybe. But it escalated quickly. He sent pictures of her inside the store, counting registers, talking to customers. She said he must have been 20, maybe 30 feet away to get those shots, clear photos. Yet nobody ever saw him on the security cameras inside. It was like he was a ghost, able to see her when she couldn't see him. She was terrified. Her bosses moved her to the back room, away from the main floor, the windows, trying to create a safe space. That relief lasted until the next piece of mail arrived. One final picture. It was her. In the back room, operating a forklift, and written across the back of the photo, "Miss you, sugar lips." He could still see her, even back there, even in what was supposed to be sanctuary. She couldn't take it anymore. She quit, moved 2 hours away, enrolled in her dream school. Finally, she thought, maybe she was free. But obsession, as we know, doesn't care about distance or new lives. Just a week before she shared this story, she saw it. What she was certain was Wob's distinct truck driving slowly through her college campus, and then the final violation. She came out to her car. There was a note tucked under the wiper and a picture of her talking to her current boyfriend. The note just said, "Miss me, sugar lips, don't worry. Even he can't protect you."
These three accounts, the photo developer, the gas station attack, this relentless stalking by Bob, they all share that awful threat, don't they? That feeling of utter helplessness. In every case, the threat didn't stay distant. It invaded the most personal spaces. The home, the car, the workplace. Places you're meant to feel safe. It forces you to confront the idea that safety can be an illusion, shattered by someone else's unseen obsession.
These stories are chilling because they're real. And the fear they create. That feeling of being watched. It doesn't just vanish when the immediate threat is gone. It lingers. If these accounts resonated with you, if you understand the reality of hidden terror, please like this, share it, and subscribe to our channel. It's called Horror Docs. We share true stories like these regularly. Stay safe out there. Until next time.